this morning I want to hear your verdict in a case that was very much discussed in the court of public opinion. The case of Robert Bowers. Robert Bowers committed the worst attack on Jews in all of American history. He was the one responsible for the killings in the Tree of Life synagogue of 11 Jews who had come to daven, wounding many others. He was put on trial, and this summer he was found guilty, and the jury and judge sentenced him to death. There was a lot of talk about that, a lot of talk about whether there should be a death sentence or not. And there's a Jewish perspective on this that certainly had to be heard in regard to this case. And what is the Jewish perspective? Well, you look in the Torah portion of this Shabbos, and we see the case of the Ben Sorer Umor, the stubborn and rebellious son. The Torah tells us if a man will have a stubborn and rebellious son who does not hearken to the voice of his father and the voice of his mother, and they discipline him, but he does not hearken to them, then his father and mother shall grasp him and take him out to the elders of the city, to the gates of his place. They shall say to the elders, this son of ours is wayward and rebellious. He doesn't listen to our voice. He's a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall pelt him with stones, and he shall die. And you shall remove the evil from your midst, and all Israel shall hear, and they shall fear. It seems possible from this that Judaism very strongly believes in the death sentence. And yet the state of Israel does not have a death sentence. And yet it did put Adolf Eichmann, the Nazi, to death. And yet, in the Talmud, we are told that the case of the rebellious son never happened and never will happen. The Torah is telling us what should happen in terms of what may be permitted to call divine justice, but we don't have the right to implement this law. And the Torah and the Talmud goes on to state that the father and mother have to bring him to court and say, our son is stubborn and rebellious, he will not obey our voice. And the voice is stated in the singular, which the halacha means the father and mother, if they don't have the same sounding voice, the law of the rebellious son does not apply in this instance. Now, as we know, it's unrealistic to expect a mother and father to have voices that sound the same. So we see that the law cannot be enforced, but can only remain as a threat. The person deserves to die, but we do not carry out any punishment. We should also note the distinction between what ought to be done and what we're permitted to do is very far-reaching. In the written Torah, there are 36 sins or crimes which you violate, the penalty is death. Whereas in the oral Torah, we are told the death penalty can only be imposed provided that there are two witnesses who warn the person in advance not to carry out his action, inform him of the penalty should he disobey them, then have the person respond that he intends to carry out the action regardless, and that makes the death penalty outside the realm of the realistic. And in fact, there are statements in the Talmud that say that any court that put to death a person once in 70 years is a killer court. So should Robert Bowers be put to death? Should there be a death penalty? I would say the answer is yes, but I started thinking about this yes, but a few weeks ago when I received my weekly article from Andrew Sullivan, a conservative writer whose opinions I respect, although don't always agree with. I have to pay to get his weekly article, but it's worth the price. And he had an article a couple of weeks ago that said the importance of saying yes to the but. And what does he mean? He says, in our divided country, it's so important to understand the importance of yes, but. And he gives examples, and I quote him, yes, immigration is the lifeblood of America, but we need to control the integrity of our borders and keep the pace of migration to a sustainable level that doesn't hurt American workers. Yes, we need to recognize and better include trans people in society, but we don't have to abolish the sex binary, sterilize children before puberty, or teach kindergarteners that they get to pick their sex like a favorite color. And he goes on, yes, but. And I thought how we, the Jewish people, the people in Israel these days, could use this yes, but philosophy. Knesset passed judicial review. The bill passed 64-0. And all the rest, the 56 others, were opposed. Now, there certainly is room for a yes. There are certainly arguments to be made in favor of the need for certain changes in the judicial system. But, right or wrong, there's so much strong opposition by so many people all over the country. When reserve soldiers are daring to boycott their obligations to serve their country, it endangers the country's security. When so many doctors threaten to leave the country, it endangers the health of the people. So yes, but, or as another writer, I phrase it, sometimes being right is not enough. Death penalty and so many other issues. Yes, but how many issues are there in your lives in regard to others where you know you're right? Yes, but Shabbat Shalom.